We are live, people. We are live. Welcome to another In Motion football stream. My name is Alam, and today we are going to get into the AFC South. We're going to preview the division. As always, I say this a lot. I'm annoying about it, but I will be for good because it's important stuff. If you are watching this live or if you're watching this on replay, stay engaged with the content because that kind of stuff really helps YouTube channels grow. If you're engaged in the form of comments, likes, subscriptions, sharing the content, if you're watching live, getting active in the chat, these are all forms of engagement that help YouTube channels grow. These are the kind of things that YouTube's algorithm looks for to spread the content to further people. So if you enjoy what you're watching, make sure you show your support because ultimately the channel will get bigger and I'll be able to do more content and the whole ecosystem thrives that way. So always got to start out with that. And today, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the AFC South. So, if you guys haven't been watching what I've been putting on my channel, I've been doing divisional previews where I basically just there's no strict format to what I'm talking about, but I'll pull up every team and I'll talk about either the short term outlook or the long term outlook, whatever I'm tapped into, because I'm talking about the whole league. I'm obviously not going to have as close of a view of each and every team and have as much knowledge about each and every roster, but I with my hope is that as the channel gets bigger and as more people start watching this content, there's going to be more involvement from different kinds of fans, and that can help educate the whole community. So while it's just me at the beginning, I'm going to be talking about essentially what I know about teams. So if you like what's going on, make sure go back and check some of the other divisional previews I've done. We're going to get started with the Colts in this division. I don't go in order of how I think the teams are going to fare, just alphabetical order of the team name. So I pull up the depth chart as currently constructed. I'll zoom in on that a little bit so that you guys can get an even better look. But this is what we're working with the Indianapolis Colts. So to start out with the offense, a good place to start is the coach. I'm an Eagles fan, so I'm pretty familiar with Shane Steichen. Prior to Shane Steichen being on the Eagles, he was with the Chargers. So he has a pretty demonstrated history with Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts, right? Two young quarterbacks, different styles of quarterback, but the ultimate point there is that he's very experienced working with quarterbacks that are very early in their development, and both quarterbacks experienced some really high highs while Steichen was in control of the offense. So he was the offensive coordinator in LA with the Chargers, I believe, when they had a defensive head coach. So it was his offense. And his role on the Eagles was unique because while he was the offensive coordinator under an offensive coach, Nick Sirianni relegated the play calling duties to him. So he was the full time play caller since the halfway mark of the first season. So all of last year and half of the season before, he was the play caller in Philadelphia. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. We have quite a bit of information about Shane Steichen, and honestly, I think a lot reflects really well on Shane Steichen, specifically as a play caller. Obviously, coaching is about more than just play calling, so we can't draw big, broad conclusions on who he is as a coach in terms of leadership, in terms of managing personalities, in terms of even understanding a defense, in terms of having an all-encompassing knowledge of football. We can't reach any conclusions about that at all. But what I can tell you here as an Eagles fan is that this guy is a certified play caller. That is for certain. So exploring how that works for the Colts, it's interesting because I think the personnel of the offense isn't particularly good, but Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen should be a very good marriage. And the reason I say that is because I think Anthony Richardson as a prospect is somebody that needs he needs to play a lot, but if he plays early enough when he's at an early stage of his development and things go wrong, that could be pretty bad for his long-term outlook. Like you see quarterbacks' careers get ruined, I think, when in the early stages of their development, they play in just a mess of an offense with bad personnel and bad coaching. I think Anthony Richardson is a prime candidate to have his career go wrong if he's put into that circumstance. Now, the personnel here, I think is pretty suspect in a lot of areas, but I do think the play calling from Shane Steichen at the very minimum will keep him on track. So um, that's very important in that situation. And then if you look at that's looking at how Anthony Richardson benefits from Steichen, right? If you flip it the other way around, I think Steichen will benefit from Anthony Richardson because worst case scenario, when all else fails, he'll be able to use Anthony Richardson's legs as an asset. Um, when calling plays, when designing game plans, this is something that you can bank on regardless of the circumstances, right? And the thing with Anthony Richardson is, yes, we know he's a runner, yet like an amazing runner, an amazing athlete. Um, he's built like a defensive end, but obviously he's a quarterback. But we know he's a runner. We know he's going to struggle throwing the ball. Some of the other parts of quarterbacks' games early in their career are harder to keep tabs on, but in his case particularly, he's very good at not taking sacks. This is some information that I've come across while looking into who he is as a quarterback. He's somebody who's very good at either through throwing the ball away, but a lot of the times scrambling when things break down. He just does not take sacks. So if you're looking to play a quarterback early, that's a very good thing to start with, right? A quarterback that's not going to just destroy drives by taking sacks or putting the ball um in the or like kind of putting the ball in harm's way in the way of fumbles. But yeah, so that aspect of the marriage is good there between Richardson and Steichen. But my concern is obviously basically everything around him. And that's why I don't think the Colts will be good this year at all. I think of the teams that I've previewed in the AFC East, the AFC North, and honestly, throughout the AFC South, I'll leak it right now. I have the Colts finishing last. I have the Colts finishing last because I think the personnel here is not good. So we'll start with the receivers. You have Michael Pittman, who I actually like just generally. I think Alec Pierce, who's cool. Isaiah McKenzie, who can do a role, and Josh Downs, who I also like, right? So it's not that I think the receiving core is bad, but you have to put everything in context. How is this receiving core going to fare for a 21-year-old quarterback with a very limited arm at this stage of his development? I don't think that receiving core is going to help him. I don't think that receiving core is going to be what a quarterback like Anthony Richardson would need right now. Anthony Richardson right now needs like Godwin and Evans or Higgins and Chase or AJ Brown and Devontae or Waddle and Hill. That's the kind of receiving core Richardson needs right now for an offense to be good. That receiving core as is right now, I think year 3, year 4 of Anthony Richardson's career, that might be fine. But as of right now, that's not going to help the offense, right? You look at the offensive line. You got Bernard Ryman, Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, and Braden Smith. Now, I believe this is the exact same offensive line from last year, which was not a good offensive line. These are some names here that I think a lot of us know have pretty positive reputations. Ryan Kelly and Quentin Nelson, especially. But this is not a team that's actually played well a whole lot, or sorry, an offensive line. Obviously, with Bernard Ryman, he was a rookie last year. Apparently, he started out the season really bad, and things picked up for him as the season went on. So there's room for improvement there, but I don't expect this offensive line to actually be good because I have no reason to believe that. Given the way they've played, I have no reason to believe that that's what's going to happen. So if we have established that the receiving core in the context of the offense probably won't be that good, if we've acknowledged that the offensive line won't be that good, we look at the tight end position, and Jelani Woods is on IR. Mo Ali Cox is cool. Kyle Granson is okay. Will Mallory is a 5th-round pick. Drew Ogletree is a 6th-round pick. There's nothing to really write home about there. You look at their running back situation. Jonathan Taylor does not want to step foot on a football field without a contract. I have a hard time imagining that's going to be sorted out. And I think a part of the reason why it's not going to get sorted out is why would he want to run behind this offensive line in this offense in such a crucial year for him? This year, obviously, is an opportunity for him to get paid, and he probably looks at it like if he runs more in this situation, his chances of getting paid are going to go down. Now, they might go down regardless, but that's probably how he's looking at it. So with that happening as well, your running backs are Zach Moss, who's not even healthy right now, and Deion Jackson. That is a bad situation. That is not good at all. So again, look at the offense as a whole. I don't like a lot of the pieces around Anthony Richardson. And I think Anthony Richardson is going to benefit from this year regardless because just playing football will help. But man, oh man, Steichen is going to have to do a lot of game planning for Richardson. I think he'll do a good job. Um, like I said, I've said it already. I think he's a certified play caller. The play calling that I saw from him last year, it's right up there with some of the best play calling seasons I've seen from Andy Reid and Doug Peterson. Obviously, it's a little bit, there's some nuance there because it's Nick Sirianni's playbook, it's Nick Sirianni's game plan, it's Nick Sirianni's like game scripts, it's Nick Sirianni's approach to football. But ultimately, in the heat of the battle, when bullets were flying, it was Shane Steichen calling the plays, and I tip my hat. He did a phenomenal job of calling plays. So I think he'll understand through his time with Jalen Hurts, especially last year, not this past year, but the year before, Jalen Hurts' first full year as a starter. He'll understand kind of how to build an offense around that kind of player to help that player grow as an athlete because he's seen Jalen Hurts' growth in front of his own eyes. And if you look at what Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense did 2 years ago, it was a lot of running the football, a lot of running Jalen Hurts and passing situationally. So I expect that from Indy, and I don't expect it to go well because I don't think they have the personnel to even be respectable at it because even that Eagles offense 2 years ago, it had a very solid offensive line. It had Miles Sanders, who's better than Deion Jackson, and even the receiving threats that are going to again force the defense to not stack the box. Um, I'll be real. No, never mind. The receiving threats were worse, but again, the rest of the Eagles' offense wasn't. Jalen Reagor and Quez Watkins, yeah, you give the advantage to Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce and Josh Downs, but yeah, the rest of the offense, it's not it. Um, like again, long term, I feel very good about this. Long term, you have Richardson, you have Steichen, you have Josh Downs, you have Michael Pittman. In the long term, as Anthony Richardson's ability to throw a football down the field opens up, opportunities for receivers down the field, and then his legs really stress out defensive fronts closer to the line of scrimmage. That tension on the both ends is going to create a lot of opportunities in the middle of the field where he might not be the most accurate, but the windows to throw into are going to be huge. So long term, I feel good about the Colts, but short term, ass. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be good this year. So that's where I'm at with the Colts offense. Um, Going on to the defense. Now, I don't even think this is like the worst on paper. Like Kwity Paye is cool. I like him as a prospect. Like I don't think it's a terrible thing to have him playing. Grover Stewart is cool. DeForest Buckner is pretty good. Like I understand him to be a very good player. Samson Ebukam, like he's I think been a valuable rotational piece for the Niners, so he should be able to play. You have the rookie Adetomiwa Adebawore. He's I think a player that maybe he's not going to be ready to play, but like if you get something out of him, he would be productive. Zaire Franklin and Shaq Leonard, that should be good, right? Because we both understand that Shaq Leonard is a very good player. Zaire Franklin's a good player. That defensive front should be good, but like the thing is, I saw the Indianapolis Colts play preseason football with their starters against the Eagles' second and third stringers, and they did not fare well. I saw Tanner McKee go up against this very defense and do okay. I saw this very defense on the football field last year with a much better secondary have good moments and good stretches. They played good against the Chiefs. They played good against the Eagles, but I also saw them play some pretty bad football games. I saw them get absolutely demolished by the Vikings and the Cowboys, who are pretty good football teams, like in context, but the way they got points hung on them is not indicative of a defense that you can expect to play well over the course of a season. So obviously there were some injuries involved, but injuries are a part of football. So you can rest assured that there will be some injuries involved as things go forward. And that's me talking about the front seven, right? I haven't even got to the fact that this secondary is very young. As of right now, you have Dallas Flowers, an undrafted player from last year starting. You have Julius Brents, who now goes by Juju, apparently, rookie second round pick starting. You have Kenny Moore in the slot, who I think is really good, but he's the only one, right? Rodney Thomas, a seventh round pick from last year, and then Julian Blackman, who's fine. Like, he's cool. Like, the secondary, I don't think will be good. So when your secondary is like that, it opens up the possibility to ruin kind of what the other parts of the team do. I could see a lot of the good things that the front seven do getting compromised by the fact that the back end is getting cooked. So both sides of the ball with the Colts, there's the possibility for things to go very, very wrong. So it's kind of what I expect to happen. I expect this to be a rough year for the Colts. I expect them to get a very high draft pick. And for what it's worth, I expect them to benefit from having a high draft pick. If you look at the tone of the Colts, Chris Ballard, when he said that Anthony Richardson is going to start, he came out and said pretty clearly, look, he's going to play right away. It might be ugly to start, but we think we're going to benefit from it long term. So when your GM says that, it sets a pretty clear tone about where this organization is heading. Yeah, I think this team is going to be bad this year. I think they're going to have a high draft pick, and I think they're going to benefit extremely extremely well from that draft pick, because I think if it turns into a Marvin Harrison Jr. or Olu Fashanu, if it turns into like one of those blue chip pieces, or Jared Verse, they're in a good spot, right? That adds to their young talent for the long term, and the investment this year in Anthony Richardson's development pays off even sooner. So that's the outlook on the Colts, people. I totally forgot to throw the banner up while I do that, but all that really does is cover a part of the depth chart, so it's not really even that needed. But I'm going to do it anyways for organization's sake. It makes it easier to clip these videos up later. But people, that's where we're at when it comes to the Colts. I already kind of let it slip that I have them last in the division, but we are going to move on from them to they're immediately next. Cool. I don't even have to search for it. To the Jacksonville Jaguars. So the Jacksonville Jaguars, very different outlook in the short term. Like before, we'll start with the offense, and I think the discussions about the offense are fairly simple. First and foremost, they have obviously their coach from last year, who is the top dog when it comes to the offense. Doug Peterson he's going to do all the game planning. He's going to do all the play calling. He is that offense. He was there last year. He's back this year. And then if you look at the offense, it's more or less the same everywhere except right tackle, where they lost, I forget his name. Who did they lose? They lost somebody to injury and to free agency. 1 second. Is it over here? Yeah. No, so it's Cam Robinson who they're missing. And then they lost somebody else to free agency to the Chiefs. I think it was Jawan Taylor. I think that's his name. But yeah, so they lost 2 tackles, and then they gained Calvin Ridley, who was, I don't know if you guys can hear that in the background, but there's some kids yelling outside the window. But yeah, they gained Calvin Ridley from suspension. They lost their 2 tackles, but they have 2 replacements. So Walker Little played a lot last year, second round pick from 3 years ago, and they have Anton Harrison, who is a first round pick from this year. So they have respectable replacements for the tackles they lost. There might be a downgrade, because you all can't always take for granted that young players are going to come in and step up, but decent chance that there's adequate replacements. Calvin Ridley, I think, will be big for them. I think he's a great receiver. I think he's going to come in and make everybody's job easier around him. And obviously Trevor Lawrence is going to greatly benefit from that. And then the way I look at it is the scope for improvement is the growth in Trevor Lawrence's game and Calvin Ridley. Everything else more or less should be the same. Marginal improvements because other players are going to get better. But I don't think anybody has the potential to take this just massive jump the way Trevor Lawrence does. And then obviously they haven't added anything to the offense in a major way outside of Calvin Ridley. So what we saw last year, we should expect more of in a better way, because on the account of 2 factors. But to be completely honest, I don't think that the improvement because of Ridley's addition and Trevor Lawrence's growth, that I don't think that puts them in a different stratosphere. I don't think that puts them in a different tier of team in respect to the other teams in the AFC. But that's something that I'll get to after I talk about the defense. But that's where I'm at with the offense. Like I said, I'm not gonna get overly into it because I don't think that there's a whole lot to talk about. There's a lot of consistency here. Obviously, they drafted Tank Bigsby, so they drafted somebody to be that number two in the 1-2 punch with Travis Etienne. Obviously, Travis Etienne is phenomenal. I think he's going to have a very good season, health permitting, next year. Um, so yeah, that's the offense. Jaguars will be fun to watch offensively, and I hope they do well because I'm always going to cheer for Doug Peterson. Then we go to the defense, and I think this is where my disappointment lies with the Jaguars because I would have loved to see them kind of not necessarily go for it, but I would have liked to see them infuse young talent to the defense. Um, Young talent in the way of the draft and in free agency signing like what I call young vets. So like players that are off of their rookie deal in year 5, maybe year 6, who have played a decent amount of football, are still in their mid to late 20s, still have a good amount of football ahead of them, but have some experience, have played in big football games, are ready to play meaningful football games right now and be relied upon in a major way. I remember the year the Eagles won the Super Bowl. It might not have been that year, but the year before, like the defense signed pieces like Rodney McLeod and there was a Brandon Brooks as well, but there was somebody else on the defense. There was a couple pieces, but like Rodney McLeod was off of his rookie deal. He came in, he played very well, right? Oh, Bradley Roby, no, no, what's it? Ronald Darby was the corner where it was like in that same part of his career, and like sure he wasn't amazing, but like we infused players off of their rookie deals onto into our defense, and while they maybe they weren't amazing, they were ready to play and they upped the level of the defense right then and there when they joined the team. If you look at the draft picks that the Jaguars spent on the defense, you see a 4th round pick, a 5th round pick, another 5th round pick, and a 6th round pick. That's not a major addition, like a serious thing that changes things. And then if you look at their defense, I don't think I spot a single addition in free agency. Like I don't. Darius Williams was there before. I think he was there last year. Rashawn Slater's been there for a while. Oluokon, the linebacker, was there last year. Fatu Kasi, I think, was there last year too. Like this whole defense is returning from last year, and like I think last year they were a functional defense. I don't think they were anything special though. They have young talent that I think maybe they're banking on growth from that young talent being Trayvon Walker, Tyson Campbell, Andre Cisco. So like yeah, there's scope for internal growth, but to be honest, I don't think there's much here. And I think like last year, right in the playoffs against the Chargers, yeah, eventually they won the game and they had a good second half, but they still got shredded in the first half. And then against the Chiefs, Pat Mahomes got hurt, and I think Chad Henne went down the field and got a touchdown. Chad Henne. So it's like this defense had its good moments, but it had its fair share of shaky moments, and I think they're set to more or less be the same, maybe slightly better. So now when you zoom out and you look at the Jaguars as a whole, what can you reasonably expect from them? Like what is the thing that's going to create a really really major change in how their offense goes, or like how their team goes, sorry, as a whole? It's Calvin Ridley and the growth from Trevor Lawrence. And again, like something I mentioned earlier that I'm going to now revisit is the fact that I don't think that their scope for improvement puts them in a different stratosphere and puts them in a different tier in respect to the other teams in the AFC. I think last year what they showed is that they were a team that if you give them a chance against the contenders in the AFC, they'll throw a punch. And if that punch lands, they can win, right? Like they have a small chance of beating any team, but they're clearly not better than the top tier in that conference. So last year you'd look at, Bengals, Bills, Chiefs. It's like they're clearly not better than those teams. But like if they show up and they have a great game, maybe they could beat them. I still think that with Ridley and with the growth from Trevor Lawrence, due to the lack of improvement elsewhere on the team, they're still in that tier. They're just a better team in that same tier. So that's where I'm like with the Jaguars. I remember last year before the season looking at the front seven, seeing Josh Allen, seeing Trayvon Walker, Devin Lloyd, seeing all these players, and I'm like, you know what? Like this team's not nearly as bad as people think they are. I think they might be, Urban Meyer tax. I think people might be forgetting that there's some names here, and they might not be as bad as some people think. And then I think the way their season ended last year, it made people think like, oh my God, wow, like we didn't see this coming. They're actually kind of good. And like it's now prompting people to go swing the other way. And I think get a little bit too gassed about them. Think they're more or less what we saw from the end of the year last year. They're just that team and they're going to be it for the whole season and people are going to understand it for the whole season. But this like big jump that I think some people might anticipate with Ridley and with Trevor Lawrence entering year 2 in the offense, I'm not sure that big jump happens. So, um, while I'm generally like I have a good outlook on this team in the long term, and like I think they'll have a good season, I think they might disappoint some people next year. So that's where I'm at with the Jaguars. Feel free to let your thoughts be known. I'd love to see what other people think. Um, and then I think what I'm gonna do now is which team's next? Next is the Texans. Oh, not Justin Houston or James Houston. Yes, Houston Texans. We gotta change the banner as well. Can't forget it this time. Okay, so here we are, right? Houston Texans. Starting with the offense. So they got an offensive coordinator from San Francisco. I believe his name is Slowick. I forget his name actually, but I'm just going with Slowick right now because, like, let's be real, it doesn't actually matter. Um, so they got the offensive coordinator from the Niners. He comes over with D'Amico Ryans. So I guess the first place to start with the offense is like I respect D'Amico Ryans as a football mind and a football player and a coach, and in every single way, I respect what D'Amico Ryans is to football. Good God, I need a sip of water. So what I'm trying to get at when I say that is if he spent this much time around that offensive coordinator and said, "Hey, I need that guy," I think there's a reason. And I think there's good reason to believe that he will bring good things with him from San Fran. So now you look at it like if he's been sitting there and studying what San Fran's been doing offensively, and he's going to look to mimic some of that stuff. Let's think about what we know about San Fran and try to contextualize what we're going to see from Houston's offense. And before I get to that, I'm going to introduce the first guest to this channel, somebody who you're probably going to hear a lot from, somebody who has a lot to say about football. Our resident Bears fan, Murtaza, who will be introduced to the stream when his devices connect, which they suddenly disconnected. So I'll just get right back to the Texans offense. Yeah, what we know about the Niners offense, right? Think about the quarterbacks that Shanahan has had in his offense and has thrived with over the course of the years, right? Matt Schaub in Houston, Matt Ryan in Atlanta, Garoppolo in San Fran, and then Purdy in San Fran. All those quarterbacks are kind of in the vein of the kind of quarterback CJ Stroud is, but I think he's better than all of them in that he has a higher ceiling. So, and I look at CJ Stroud's fit to the offense, I think it's pretty good. So the assumption I'm going to make there is that he's going to probably perform pretty decent because what that offense does is going to be catered to him. So if you now look at the players around him, we're going to talk about how things might be catered to him. A lot of short passing game, a lot of easy reads, easy throws, simple decisions, but decisions you have to get right. And I think they kind of have the personnel to do that in the way of Robert Woods, Tank Dell, and John Mechie, particularly, right? Three receivers that have, in different ways, shown the ability to get open, kind of in like a slot gadget receiver kind of a way. Mechie, not so much as the other two, but Tank Dell and Robert Woods should make it really easy for a quarterback to play football. You have Nico Collins, who like he's cool. Like I think he'll do the big physical receiver thing. Not particularly great, but it'll be decent. And then you have the running back. I think Damian Pierce is going to do really, really well in this scheme. I think the offensive line is respectable. So they don't have Juice Struggs or Kenyon Green. They're down 2 starters to start the season, but that should be something that figures itself out. Towards the end of the year. Obviously, as of right now, they have to start Kendrick Green, a guy they traded for from Pittsburgh, and a rookie 6th-round pick at center. So early on, maybe that doesn't work out the best. Oh, true. No. Okay, hold up. Let me just get through this, then I'll put you in. But yeah, you got the running back, you got the offensive line, who aside from those two injuries is pretty respectable, and you have some weapons. So I think this offense will probably be a little bit better than people think, but obviously not good enough to make any noise. I do think they're going to function better than the Colts. I think Titus Howard, Laramie Tunsil, and what's his name? Shaq Mason are going to do more than the Colts offensive line are going to do for their rookie quarterback. I think Damian Pierce is going to do more than Deion Jackson is going to do. And I think these receivers, honestly, I don't think they're better than the Colts receivers necessarily, or maybe they are. But the point is like their connection with Stroud, I think, will definitely be better than the Colts receivers' connection with Richardson. So already one team that I think they're for sure going to be better than. I think if their offense ends up like functioning to its highest level, you might see them have a couple games where they take you by surprise and they score a lot of points. But obviously, first year of the offense, first year of what they have going on, so will allow them some grace. So with that being said, rant over. I will introduce the man who's now ready to join the stream. Welcome, Murtaza.
Yo, what's up, bro?
What's good? We're just talking about the Texans offense. I finished up with the Colts and the Jaguars. So when we're done with the Texans and the Titans, we can just circle back to see what you have to say. But
Yeah,
Texans offense, what are we saying?
yeah, it's an interesting one because as you touched on, we were talking a couple days ago. Like their
Yeah,
O line is really solid, honestly. Like they've invested heavily into that. They have Tunsil and Stroud's weapons aren't the greatest, but they're not like
yeah,
bottom tier of the NFL.
yeah.
And
It just sucks for them. They had to put two of their starters on the offensive line on IR to start the season.
yep,
That
yep,
sucks. But aside from that, they had five guys before that. They still have Tunsil, Shaq Mason, and the right Titus Howard, which is still pretty good. Because again, like a lot of offensive lines are dog shit. They're not dog shit. But yeah, go ahead.
yep. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, they've definitely played to Stroud's strengths with like getting receivers that are better in the short game. I'm excited to see what Tank Dell does because
Same.
he had a lot of hype coming out of the draft, and he's very shifty, very quick. So they're decent. Like a lot of people have them as like the second worst team in the NFL after the Cardinals and that. But like with that offense, I can definitely think of two or three offenses just off the top of my head that are worse than them. Just to start out, and but it really depends on Stroud. I think he is out of all the rookies drafted, and especially there's three rookies in this division. He's
Yeah.
definitely the most pro ready in a sense. Like
Yeah.
he's the most mature and everything. Like he doesn't have the highest ceiling out of all of them. I think he has the lowest, but I think he's like the most NFL ready right now. So that's also
Highest floor, lowest ceiling. Yeah.
exactly. So and it's gonna be interesting, but I think the Texans will do better than people expect. I think that offense is decent.
Oh, 100%. I definitely think there's worse offenses. And like I said, like if things bottom out with their offensive productivity, I still think that there's going to be some worse offenses. But if it caps out and they function at their highest level and like that offensive coordinator out of San Fran is really good, then you look at it like I could see them having a very good running game. Because I think Damian Pierce, right? If you put him in a scheme that's good for him, bro, he's gonna go for 100
Yep,
fairly consistently, right? And then
yep,
if then that happens consistently and defenses are kind of, sneaking towards the line of scrimmage, you get some play action going with some easy routes to guys who can get stuff after the catch. Robert Woods can take end arounds and shit. I've seen Robert Woods carry Jared Goff at certain points, right? Who's a
yeah. Oh
comparable
yeah,
quarterback to Stroud. So it's like I could see a scenario where you could actually game plan some like 30-point games out of this offense. Obviously, they're just going to need the right circumstances in terms of the defense they play and shit like that. But it could
facts.
happen to where they could have some like, I expect the offense to be like probably average with some wow moments here and there. I think that probably makes the most sense for what to expect. But yeah, also they have Dalton Schultz, who like I don't think is anything special, but again, just having like a security blanket tight end who's like just gonna do his job because that's the kind of player he is. Like, yeah, there's a there's enough here for if the offensive coordinator is a serious guy to actually have like some good moments. But that's where I'm at with the offense.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you there because like it's again, it's not the worst, especially in that division. Bro, I don't know how it's gonna play out in that division, especially with three rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Like that's very interesting. So
Yeah.
it I think they'll have enough, and especially with if I'm looking even at the defenses, Jaguars are great offensively, but their defense is not great.
Yeah.
The the
They didn't
Titans,
improve either. They didn't do
yeah, they
shit to
didn't
that
improve
defense.
exactly.
Yeah.
Um, the Titans are okay defensively. Like they got good pieces. Like they have Jeffrey Simmons. I think they
Hey, yo,
still
yo, we'll save that sauce for the Titans.
yeah,
It's
well,
the
yeah,
next
yeah,
team.
but
Yeah.
and then who else is there in that division? The Colts, right? The
Colts.
Colts have a decent defense too. So like, you're looking at basically 8 games out of like basically half your season is your division basically,
Yeah.
and I think they can do pretty well against those defenses. I can see this offense just off those defenses alone putting up at least somewhere between 21 to 24 points per game. I don't think they'll be that bad. It's their defense that's the worrying part per se.
For the Texans, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's a pretty natural segue to the defense. So the place where what I'll say about the defense, right? There's parts of it I like. So specifically, right? I like the secondary with like you
Hmm.
have Stingley and Steven Nelson. Steven Nelson is a vet that's just going to be he's going to be fine. Like he's going to do his job, nothing special. Stingley obviously is the strong point. He brought Jimmy Ward over from San Fran, who versatile piece can do a different job depending on what's required from him on that particular week. Jalen Petrie, who's like I like as a young player, and he's probably going to get better, right? So
Yep.
secondary, I'm very comfortable with. I wouldn't be worried about it. The linebacking situation is pretty sus. They cut the main guy who's been there for a while. Blake Cashman, I think, is like just mediocre. Denzel Perryman, end of his career. Christian Harris, I actually don't know much about, but he's a third round pick from last year, so maybe he'll be decent, right? Who knows? But
Yep.
that's a suspect uh, group. And then in the context of D'Amico Ryans' defense, the linebacking core was like a huge strength at the Niners, right? So
Yep.
that gap in personnel, I think we're going to learn about a lot about D'Amico as a defensive coordinator to see if he can cope with that and to see how big a part of that, how big of a role that played and what the Niners defense was. So that's where my concern definitely lies with the front four. Obviously, you like Will Anderson. I like Sheldon Rankins. Malik Collins is fine. Like he's gonna do his job. He'll be okay. I don't know shit about Jonathan Greenard or the fourth round pick Dylan Horton. So I don't know what to expect from them. But I know Jerry Hughes will also probably play well in a small role. So I don't think he can start, but I think in certain situations, in like a 15 snaps a game kind of a role, he's gonna cook, right? So like the defensive line, it'll probably be below average all things considered, but it could be decent. The
Yep.
secondary I expect to be good, but the linebacking core I don't know what to expect from it. I think that could be a pretty bad thing for them. So um all things considered, honestly, I look at this defense. I understand why they traded up for Will Anderson because they did need that kind of piece
Yep.
badly. So with what they have out there, like I, I look at D'Amico and I was like, again, I trust him, but I think he has a big task ahead of him,
Big
and
task.
I think the defense will, again, like against bad offenses, the talent on the back end will probably be enough. But against any offense that's competent, they should be able to give 25 plus points to this defense pretty easily. And with that said, I'm gonna hand you the floor for the defense, and I'll be right back. I just need like a minute.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, so for this defense, I think funny enough, this kind of reminds me of I so by the way, people, I'm a Bears fan, so this kind of reminds me of our defense from last year, where I was pretty decent, like calm about the secondary. I think like our secondary was good, just like theirs. I like Jimmy Ward a lot. I really liked him on the Niners. Stingley was at the third overall pick. I think either last year or the year before. Steven Nelson's obviously a vet that came over from I think Pittsburgh. Um, So their secondary is good, but it doesn't matter how good your secondary is if your pass rushers can't rush and you can't get any penetration on that O line, because as good as your secondary is, they can't cover forever, and the quarterbacks will have a lot of time back there with the current pass rush they have and the current defensive linebackers. So I think they're gonna get killed on the run. I think and that'll just open up everything else. And what happens is whenever you get killed on the run, you commit more men forward to the run, and then they just kill you with either the play action and stuff. So I think this is a big reason why the NFL scouts, everyone think these guys are gonna struggle the way they are, because it's this defense, man. You after looking at this depth chart right here, you understand why they traded a future first and the 12th overall pick they had to trade up for Will Anderson, because this defense just lacks a lot of front seven talent, really. So it doesn't matter how many points they can put up. Ultimately, just like this team so much reminds me of the Bears last season, because again, the offense is not terrible. It's decent. They can put up some points, but just like you saw with the Bears, they were the number one scoring offense in the month of November in those 5 games, but they got killed because the defense couldn't stop anybody. And I think that's what's going to happen to the Texans. Like, this front seven is horrendous.
100%. And you can kind of see what he did here. He's like, look, let me go get my Nick Bosa, like whatever, however,
Yep.
I think, like, let me go get my Nick Bosa. Sheldon Rankins, I think he got his, so I forget what, maybe his DeForest Buckner, whatever, right? Let me get one piece in the middle, but it's like, get a thing in the middle, and it's
Yeah.
like we'll build from there in the future. Obviously, they're
Yep.
year one of a long-term vision, so they have time, they have job security, they don't have to stress out about much. But yeah, it's gonna be ugly this year. Obviously, to their like was gonna be it's gonna I don't know, it's probably gonna suck for them to see their first round pick go away. But at the end of the day, like they needed the talent. Um with that being said, I think we just got the raid from Sarcasm City. So I'll let you get into it, and then I think as I see people in the chat, I'll address what they say. But yeah, do you have anything else to say about this defense?
Nah, man. Let's just see what they can do. I'm excited to see Will Anderson, but
Same.
he's gonna get smoked as well. You won't see the best of him because he's the only good piece in their front seven, so he's just gonna get targeted, and they're just
Yep.
gonna double team,
Yo,
triple team him.
he's gonna get chipped by tight ends so
Yep.
often, so often. But yeah, no, we got like an influx of viewers all of a sudden, so I'm pretty sure this was the raid from Sarcasm City. Big up everybody who's trickling in from that channel. I know you guys are coming from a Mandem United, and as we are Mandem United, this is very different than what you guys are talking about. We're talking about, you know what I'm saying, American football right now. It's not Manchester United going on here, but look, a lot of the Sarcasm City faithful that you guys enjoy on Sarcasm City will be here to talk about the NFL. I know a lot of people have NFL questions, and in the chat are asking about this, that, or the other pertaining to the NFL. So a lot of the style coverage you get at Sarcasm City, you're gonna get here, but pertaining to the NFL. So if you enjoy that kind of thing, stick around. If not, feel free to bounce. But on your way out, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're gonna be out here working. We're gonna hopefully get to grow this channel at some point. But yeah,
100%.
help out while you're here on your way out. Back to the regularly scheduled programming. Big up to Flawless as always for the raid. But we're gonna get to the Titans.
Yep.
So Titans, right? I think a pretty clear thing happened in their offseason. I think they started out saying, look, let's just let's try to get as much upside as we can get in the offseason. So like Andre Dillard, Arden Key, Sean Murphy Bunting, like let's get players that have a good 5 to 6 years left in their career, and hope we get people's like a better part of people's career who maybe didn't get a great role on other teams, right? It looked like they were building for the future for a long time. And you could say that makes sense because they have Ryan Tannehill and a squad that capped out.
Yep.
But it feels like once they got Will Levis, their whole approach changed, because then you go and you sign Nuke. and then you say, we're not trading Kevin Byard, and then you make all these, like, it's almost like they were gearing towards positioning themselves to get a quarterback because they probably didn't think they could get one, and then they
Yep.
got Levis in the second, and they're like, well, we got a quarterback now, and like, but they've been fine with Ryan Tannehill for the last little bit. Before that, they were fine with Mariota. Like, this organization is very okay with mediocre quarterback play. So it's like, we got a next
Yep.
mid quarterback. Look, we can keep it pushing, right? So then, very abrupt change of tone in the offseason. Um, so I think they're a fucking weird team, man. Like, I look at this offense and I don't think Nuke is like prime Nuke anymore. I think
Yep.
Traylon Burks had no opportunity to really show what he had last year, and I don't know if he still is. I
Yep.
think everybody else in that receiving core is like either able to play a role to a decent level or just not good. I think that offensive line, uh, I think there's three new pieces. Andre Dillard, left tackle, Daniel Brunskill from the Niners, right tackle, and Skoronski as a guard. So for what it's worth, I think Skoronski is going to be a very good guard. I think Andre Dillard, it's a sticky one because at no point was he ever a very good tackle on Philadelphia. There were some circumstances that were difficult. Initially, he was asked to play left tackle. Then Mailata was better than him. So then he was asked to play right tackle, something he's never done. He struggled with it. Then he tried to play guard to maybe get some minutes, but then he wasn't good at that either. So now he's back to play left tackle. And look, maybe he's going to be a pretty good left tackle, but that's not to be taken for granted. Like, he might just be average. Sometimes that's what happens. You make 100 excuses for a guy and they're just average. So he might be average. The right tackle, Brunskill from the Niners, I don't think he's anything special. I don't think a whole lot of the Niners offensive line was like
Yeah.
particularly good as individuals aside from Trent Williams. So I don't think I look at that and think like phenomenal player there. But yeah, like, I like Chigo Okonkwo a lot, but I don't know how big. Like, I don't think there's enough volume in the passing game from the quarterback position to like feed Burks, Nuke, and Chig a lot, like the way they could. So it's like, I don't think you're even gonna get all you could get from those three players. So like, I like looking at a depth chart and seeing Okonkwo, Nuke, and Traylon Burks, but I don't think they have the quarterback to take advantage of them. So you're not going to get that impact. The offensive line, I don't think is going to do a whole lot for the offense. Like,
Yep.
at best, they'll be decent at best, right?
At
You
best,
look at the
yes.
quarterback position. I don't think you're getting much from Tannehill aside from just like a base level of competence sometimes. Malik Willis struggled a lot last year. He might be decent this year. Definitely could be the case. And then Will Levis, who I think is going to like just, if he plays this year, he's going to struggle. He should not be playing this year. Um, Obviously, Derrick Henry's phenomenal. Tajay Spears is cool. But again, behind this offensive line, with all the carries Derrick Henry's had in his career, how much productivity are they going to get from that position? So I look at this offense and I'm like, there's a ceiling of like above average, but there's a pretty low floor. Like,
Yeah.
one guy, the wrong injury happens, this could be one of the worst offenses in football. So I think the Titans are in a really weird place. I think the abrupt change of tone towards contending was the wrong decision. And we'll see what happens. For their sake, I hope it works. But boy, what a strange direction to have as a franchise.
It is. It is very weird. The one, like, not to bring you back to the Bears, we were linked. So we needed a tackle, right? We needed offensive lineman, and the one guy that was really like hyped up in the draft, everything was Skoronski, and I didn't want him whatsoever. This guy is in his dinosaur arms, like, just because he went to Northwestern, like an hour away from Chicago. They're like, oh yeah, he's gonna stay there. He's a Packers fan. Didn't want him, and because for us, he was gonna potentially play right tackle, and I knew this guy in the NFL. He's
He's a
gonna be a
guard.
guard.
He has to
He's,
be a guard.
he has to be a guard because yeah, he might have the agility and everything, but just the intangibles, he doesn't have it to play tackle
Okay.
in the NFL.
Yeah.
So, and I wasting 11th overall pick on a guard is kind of crazy when you see like the talent that was there, and but their offseason, as you said, like we discussed this before, is so weird because at one point you think they're doing something and then something else, like, and I just don't think with I think Nuke's obviously really like one of the best receivers in the NFL on his day, but he's not the same. He plays 7, 8 games a season. He's hurt. He's suspended. Blah blah blah. There's a bunch of shit going on with him. Then you have Burks, who was drafted in the first round last year, but you know failed to really impress people and that was not down to him because he just didn't get the opportunities. And obviously, this offense is very run heavy. They're just gonna play boring football because that's what Variable likes. He's just gonna, you know, go punch for punch, and that's what they do with Henry. And I decently like the Spears pick because like he's a good third down back and a good complement to Henry. But with that offensive line, like you're not really getting anywhere. I think that's still one of the worst offensive lines in the league, in my opinion. Like it's I don't like it whatsoever. And the interesting thing about their offense is the Malik Willis, Will Levis like battle that we saw in preseason. Like they were playing like halves, they were splitting halves with each other, splitting drives, and you could say that Malik Willis won that battle, and that might be due to Will Levis not being ready yet because he is very raw prospect. So we'll have to see what they can do, but as of right now, yeah, I don't see this offense going anywhere.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Willis Levis dynamic is weird because you basically have the old regime's like quarterback for the future and then the new regime's quarterback for the future at the same time. But you
Yep,
can't really get rid of the old guy because the new guy's a little bit too shit right now, right?
yep,
So it's like it's just a fucked up circumstance.
exactly that.
Right. So I mean, again, like I don't know, that stuff's weird. Sometimes those type of weird vibes just kind of make the whole dynamic off. But we'll see what
Yep,
happens. I definitely agree with the whole thing you had to say about that offense. I don't expect much. And then you look at the defense, and it's even more weird shit. Like so Jeffrey Simmons is awesome, right? Danico Autry, I think, is slept on. He's a good player, but again, he like so basically for those who don't know how to read this depth chart, if you see a player's name in all caps, that means they're 30 or over. When you see a player's name in like lowercase, that means they're under 30. So like again, Danico Autry is cool, but he's 30, right? So it's like, what is the point of having a 30-year-old role player on a defensive line for this kind of a team? He's either gonna play decent and like hog up minutes from somebody who could benefit from it because they could grow from like the opportunity, or he's gonna get washed and you're gonna get no trade value out of him. It's like, you know how you guys had Robert Quinn last year? Like, what
exactly.
was the
Yeah.
point? Like, what's the
Yep.
point? So it's like that's Nico Autry there. Arden Key is like a highly rated college player that never really panned out in the NFL yet, and they're starting him. So it's like, okay, maybe they'll get the best out of him, but like probably not. Aziz Al Shair was a part-time player in San Fran because their linebackers are elite. So like he played a little bit and he played well in the little bit that he played, but now it's like here, play linebacker like full time now. We'll see how that goes. The other starter right now. So again, for people that don't know how to read this depth chart. CF means a college free agent, as in undrafted free agent. So this guy
Yep.
was an undrafted free agent from 2022, a second year player who's an undrafted free agent. Like again, maybe he's good, but he's probably shit, right? Because like that tends to be what undrafted players are in their second year for the most part. Harold
Yep.
Landry, like he's cool, he's good, he's a good player. Um, then like the secondary, right? Christian Fulton, Sean Murphy Bunting, Roger McCreary. It's young and it's honestly like it's decent, but like that's not enough to carry you by any means. Kevin Byard's good. Amani Hooker's good. Like the secondary is actually like they might be good, but like again, it's not like there's enough around them for that to even be beneficial. Like you talked
Yep.
about the Bears last year, what the Texans might be this year. Having a good secondary on its own is not enough. So I look at the front seven. It's like Jeffrey Simmons and Harold Landry can't carry on their own. It's like again, this team is like if everything goes well, they'll be just be completely average. They'll be mediocre as fuck. And if things don't go well, they're going to be one of the worst teams in football. They have there's in such a shitty place where like it would be best for them if they just got rid of their vets, embraced the rebuild, and went all in on getting a quarterback during this great time to get quarterbacks. But it looks like they've settled into basically trying to develop these young players like when trying to win with Will Levis waiting in the wings. And I just hate it so much. Like they traded for Nick Folk. Why are you giving up draft capital to trade for a kicker that the Patriots are done with? It makes no sense. You're going to not be good. Just sign a shit guy and deal with it, right?
Deal with it
But no,
exactly.
Just but like this GM is on some weird shit. So that's what I have to say about the defense and the team as a whole. We'll give back to Murtaza the floor. Back to Murtaza. Go ahead.
Yeah, bro. It's interesting because they definitely do have some good pieces on here. Like Jeffrey Simmons, he just got a monster extension, 4 year, 94 million this offseason. They have Kevin Byard, who is one of the best safeties in the league. They got Sean Murphy Bunting, who is a good corner. But then you just look at the others, it's like it's just a whole lot of mid. And one guy I'm excited to watch is Travis Gibson. He got released by the Bears. He had 7.5 sacks in 2021 with the tandem of Mack and Quinn. Like he chipped in with a lot. So I know you were talking about the what's his the Autry guy who's
Yeah,
getting old. So maybe he could be the replacement for him in the future
true.
because he wanted to move to a 3-4 scheme to play one of the DNs. So it'll be interesting to see. But
Okay, so then he's misplaced here as an outside linebacker in a 3-4.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
that makes
yeah,
sense. That makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah. So it's like it's interesting because like they remind me so much of the Bears again, like the
Bro,
defense,
they
like
even have Vildor. They claimed
Vildor,
Vildor off.
bro, exactly, bro. One of the worst corners I've ever seen in my life. Anyway, that's a different story, but like it's like I don't know, bro. These guys, I don't know what they're doing. Like we talked about all season, they're just such a weird team. Like they don't have a direction, and they're like the most 8-8 team like I think I've ever seen. Like they're gonna be just mid tier, like
Yeah,
maybe not even 8-8. They might be six
at
and
best.
eleven
At
or
best.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 like that. That's their ceiling. So they're not rebuilding, and they're not
Yeah.
going like full out. Let's go and win this thing. So that's like I think the worst place to be in the NFL. Like you'd rather be 3-12 than you'd be 8-8 because then you get a higher draft pick and then you could build from there. So this direction they're heading in, man, I don't know. And this I could say comfortably is the worst division in football. Like,
Yeah.
like it is competing with the NFC South, but
Yeah.
it's horrible. And it's
I,
it's no wonder all these Southern teams. I don't know why they're so ass. All of a
yeah.
sudden, like it makes no sense. But yeah,
For real.
I'm not a fan.
No, I agree. And like something I'm kind of hoping for because it would be so weird and awkward is like, what if they just like are organically shit, right? Then they get a high draft pick. Now they're looking at it like, yo, do we draft a quarterback for the third year in a row and then like have literally three saviors in three back-to-back off seasons? I think just watching this team navigate that awkward situation will be funny. So I'm kind of cheering for it. But yeah, like as you said, um, the team is ceiling 8-8, floor I don't know, or like 8-9, whatever, floor 3 and
Yep.
14, right? And then the
Yep.
other thing is like I kind of have a rule of thumb when it comes to like looking at football teams. And the rule of thumb is like when majority of your like very good players are players that are in their 30s and like just generally old, things tend to go wrong. Do you think it's just you need to have a talent base of guys in their mid 20s to kind of have like security for a season? When all your best players are old as fuck for the most part, because again, like for them, I think they're established talent that isn't old. And I mean, like established talent is Harold Landry, Jeffrey Simmons, and then Derrick Henry isn't 30, but he's 35 in running back years, right? So it's
Yeah.
like,
Like, yeah.
your talent base is old. And then like Nuke is there as well, right? Your talent base for the most part, like again, Kevin Byard, there's a lot. Ryan Tannehill is your established quarterback. There's a lot of established talent here that is older, and then like the younger pieces that you can respect are Landry and Simmons, and that's it. So it's like, yeah, it's gonna be a tough one for Tennessee. I think we both feel pretty similarly as a whole. So I'll just go back to the Colts and the Jags to get your thoughts, and I'll see if I have anything else to chip in. I already got through those teams.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll just predict the division and get out of here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Colts offense. What are we saying?
Colts offense. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting with what they do with the running back situation with Taylor holding out. Basically, he's on the PUP list, physically unable to perform for at least 4 weeks. So let's see how that situation turns out. But when it comes to their offensive line, outside of Quentin Nelson, they're not great. like they're okay, I guess. But that's when it helps with having such a dynamic, dominant quarterback like Anthony Richardson, who can, you know, scramble and just basically play Superman. And the receivers are cool. Interested to see what Alec Pierce does now that it's year two. Josh Downs, they got him in the third round this year. I'm excited to see what he does. Pittman's, I think, a really good receiver. A lot to see from him. So they have decent talent, but it's just not enough to pair with Richardson. I think they could have done much better, but I'm I I don't have many hopes for this offense. I think they're gonna really struggle this year, and maybe it's to their benefit. You know, they could get another high pick in next year, and then hopefully let's see what they can do with that.
Yeah, so I had similar things to say. I basically said that like I like Richardson a lot. I like Steichen as a play caller for Richardson. I think that's a marriage where they'll both benefit each other. But the thing is like the offensive line was really bad last year, and it's the same offensive line. And like the names are decent. Like Ryan Kelly is a decent name. Quentin Nelson is a decent name. Braden
Fair
Smith is a
sense, yeah.
decent name. But brother, they played ass last year. So like, who
They
cares,
yeah.
right? Will Fries, seventh round pick from 2021. I don't think he's been like a good player. He's been okay at times. And
Yep.
then Bernard Ryman, their left tackle, they said that he was bad at the beginning of the year and then he got better as the year went on. But
Mhm.
like that one player, even if he then takes another step, is not going to carry other players if they play the same as they played last year. And I'm not just going to assume that like offensive coordinator change is going to all of a sudden make guys better. So I'm assuming the offensive line is going to be bad. I like some parts of their receiving core, right? But I think because Anthony Richardson is where he's at, like I said about like Tennessee, I don't think you're actually going to get the most out of these receiving weapons because of where he's at as a quarterback. And that's fine because he has to get through it and get to next year, right? So cool. Even though like I personally like Downs and Pittman as receivers, I don't think you're going to get the full production that you could get out of
Yep.
them. We've established the offensive lines are going to be shaky. We established you're not going to get much in the passing game.
Yep.
Jonathan Taylor does not want to play football for them. So, like, that sucks. The tight ends, Jelani Woods is maybe the guy who had potential, but he's hurt. He's on IR. So it's
Yep.
like Richardson's going to have nothing around him. He's going to be running for his life. He's going to be throwing the ball away a lot. He's just like the offense is not going to be productive. I think it's going to be really bad. I think this team is going to get a high draft pick. And
Yep.
yeah, I think they'll benefit from the high draft pick a lot.
A
Like,
lot. Yep.
this team should be like full steam ahead trying to get Marvin Harrison Jr.
You think so? I think they would. I think they would, should get the
The
offensive
left
lineman
tackle.
from
Oh,
Penn State, Olu.
100%. No, no, that's the thing.
Yeah.
They could definitely use Olu, right? Like 100%. But
Hmm.
like I'm just looking at it like obviously like Marvin Harrison Jr. is the flash
Yeah,
player,
that would be crazy. That would be
and
crazy.
then I look at it like, okay, like if Bernard Ryman's if he gets better, then he's like a good player. Like fuck it, we have a good left tackle. Let's go get an elite receiving core because like that's what Marvin Harrison Jr. would do for you. You have him as your
Instantly.
main
Yep.
guy, Josh Downs as the field stretcher. Michael Pittman can get in the open space that's freed up by everybody else.
Yep.
Then that passing attack stretches the field. Richardson's legs kind of stress a defense at the line of scrimmage. Now you have like now you're cooking with gas. If you can like it's a obviously the left tackle Olu Fashanu would help a lot as well,
Yep.
but that will be a serious move if they could get Marvin Harrison Jr. And I think they could lose enough games to get it done. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can briefly get into the defense, but like basically what I said was like this defense looks good on paper and they had good games against the Chiefs and the Eagles, but don't lose track of the fact that like their secondary is probably going to be shit this year and it wasn't last year. Like they had Stephon Gilmore. I think they had somebody else. But if you look at what they're starting this year, they still have Kenny Moore in the slot, and I like him. He's pretty good. But Darius Flowers is an undrafted player from last year who's going to start at corner with a rookie from this year, Juju Brents.
Juju
And then
Brents. Yep.
in the secondary, a seventh round pick, Rodney Thomas II, is going to be starting from last year. And Julian Blackman, who's like just average, right? So this secondary is probably going to be pretty shit. And I think that that is going to make the job tough for the front seven, who is like, again, it's good on paper. But then the caveat I want to add to like it looking good on paper is the Colts played their starters against the Eagles in preseason. So I saw the Colts starters against the Eagles second and third stringers. And when I tell you that it was competitive, it was competitive. So
Yep.
like I thought that that was really concerning for the Colts. I think like good linebackers aren't enough to carry a bad secondary, and I think that this defensive line it's got some decent pieces, but like Kwity Paye still isn't like he's still a prospect kind of like he's
Yep.
not a serious producer. Grover Stewart is like he's a role player effectively, like he's there to just like clog up a gap. He's not like a game changer like that.
Yep.
DeForest Buckner is great, but that's one player. Samson Ebukam was a bit part player for the Niners, a good rotational pass rusher. How good is he going to be, right? Like there's not a whole the defensive line, it looks better on paper than it'll actually produce. The linebackers are good. Secondary is probably going to be shit. So it's like I think this whole team is just going to be shit next year. But my long-term outlook, I actually feel good about what they have going on. But this year is going to be dog shit.
Yeah. This year, I think their defense won't be great because so we actually had joint practices with the Colts this year, and so I was watching a lot of Bears coverage when it comes to the joint practices, and when the Bears offense went up against them, like they were just carving them open, like they were getting huge holes in the run game, like they were getting cooked by Equanimeous St. Brown and Dante Pettis, which I was like, okay, that's saying something. One person I'm really excited for in their defense is the fourth round pick, Adetomo Adebawore.
Yep.
He is the definition of a potential player.
It's like they went for another Kwity Paye pick. They did it twice.
Yeah, they
which
did
I
it twice.
actually like. I actually like when it comes to those kind of picks, I believe in just keep shooting. Just keep shooting.
Yeah, 100%.
It'll turn out. Yeah.
And it's a fourth round pick, not a first round pick like Kwity Paye, which is which makes you feel better. But the thing with Adetomo was he was at Northwestern, and he's actually a 3 technique. But they had so many injuries, Northwestern. They were playing him as an edge rusher, which that's not his game. So that's why people had him like projected really low. But then he came to the combine, he dominated. I think he ran a 4.57 40 as a 3 technique. That is freaking insane. So he is just crazy athletic, and he's got good technique. So I'm excited to see what he does in there. But yeah, their defense is trash. Like I don't think they'll be any good.
Nah, yeah, this team's gonna get dunked on this year, but it's fine. It's okay. Like I actually think it'll be good that Anthony Richardson gets a lot of he'll get like half the game will be real football, half the game will be garbage time, and it's low key actually a good circumstance for him to be in. So I'm happy for him. 21-year-old quarterback. He'll be in a decent situation, and then so you were around for Texans and Titans.
Yep.
We just did Colts. Okay, Jaguars last team. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is an interesting team because I think they got a new offensive coordinator. No, wait. That was the Chargers. My bad.
Yeah.
That was the Chargers. I don't know why I got.
I mean, I understand why you put those 2 teams together because they played a phenomenal game. But
yeah, they played a phenomenal game. That's right. Yeah. So yeah, the Jags, they're like they got the ETN. They have Ridley, who I'm really excited for. I can't wait for what Ridley brings because I think he's still a really good receiver. I think he could be a number 1 receiver. He obviously had the whole betting scandal, which is why he had to leave Atlanta. And now with Trevor Lawrence, I think he could be really good. I think they have a decent offensive line. It's not the best. It's okay. Evan Ingram, I'm excited for because he didn't have the best season in general, but in the playoffs, he really turned up. And he was huge for them in those games, and they have some decent weapons. I'm not a fan of Christian Kirk. I think I've made this quite clear. I don't think he's great. He got paid crazy, but he was okay in the playoffs. Zay Jones is an okay piece. Parker Washington, I'm really excited for. He's the receiver out of Penn State. I thought he was severely underrated.
He went really late. He went
really late. I thought he was going to be a 3rd, 4th round pick, but yeah, 6th round was crazy. So I'm excited to see what he can bring. And I'm interested in general. This is another year for Trevor Lawrence. He wasn't great his first year. Second year, he had a boom. So now 3rd year, now it's the time where he can really make a push for it, and they'll easily win the division by a lot. I think they just have pretty much 8 guaranteed wins, this season when it comes to the division because the division sucks. So it's gonna be interesting to see what they do. But yeah, I like their offense. I think they're decent.
I agree. So here's my thing with the offense, right? There's so much overlap between their offense last year, so you can work a lot with what happened last year to kind of anticipate next year. The main
Yep.
differences are this, right? In my opinion, the main differences are Trevor Lawrence is a year older, and like for a young quarterback, that has potential for there to be a big jump. Calvin Ridley is there, which I think is potential for a big jump. Um, like I think he's really good. I think he's a real wide receiver one. So I think he steps into the offense. He makes everybody else a less of a priority in the passing attack. That makes everybody else's job easier in an offense that they already thrived in last year, right? So that I think is going to have a pretty good knock on effect. And then the other thing is that they lost both their offensive tackles for different reasons. So Jawan Taylor went to the Chiefs, and
Yep.
then Cam Robinson got suspended. So I actually don't remember if Cam Robinson's gone for the whole year or if it's just the start. But the interesting thing is that they coped with those losses pretty well. So they drafted a tackle in the first round, Anton
Anton.
Harrison. That
Yep.
could go bad, but I kind of give Doug Peterson the benefit of the doubt. And then Walker Little played last year a lot. So whatever I don't know how good or bad he is, but he did fine. Like they did fine with him on the football field last year. So I think there's potential for the change in the offensive tackles to be a downgrade, but there's potential for it to also be the same. So I think that's okay. They could get Cam Robinson back from suspension, but my big take on the Jaguars is that I think last year people had no idea that they were actually like a good football team. So like it hit
Yeah.
people by surprise, right? And I think now people are like maybe expecting a little bit too much, whereas like the reality is like you guys just overly slept on them last year. I think the upgrades that they made to their offense, and we'll talk about the defense, but like I think the overarching point is they didn't really improve their defense, right? Their offense will be better, but I don't know if that puts them in a different tier as a football team than before. I think they're just a better team in the same tier. I think last year what they showed is that like they have a puncher's chance against any football team in the AFC, but they're clearly worse than the main teams, right? So
Yep.
Kansas City, Buffalo, Cincinnati, they're clearly below those teams, but they have a puncher's chance against them because like you have Trevor Lawrence and you have a great coach, right? I still think they're kind of in that category. They're just a more dangerous team. But I don't know if they did enough to take the jump to being the serious team that like they have the framework to be. So like I like Ridley a lot. He will make them a better team. Trevor Lawrence being better will make them a better team. I still just look at them more or less the same. They're a better version of last year. They're not a completely different entity in the NFL, right? Like
Yep.
I still think if they go into Kansas City come playoff time, I'm putting money on Kansas City. I'm putting money on Cincinnati. This year, there's some like like I I'm actually very disappointed in their organization for the fact that Ridley was the only chance they took to get better. But
Yeah.
before I put a bow on that point, I'll let you talk about the defense.
Yeah. Yeah. Facts. Yeah. Their defense is pretty good. I think like they have good pieces, but they're all like potential players, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah,
Traylon Walker, huge year for him. He was the number one pick last year. I like Roy Robertson Harris. He was good on the Bears. I think he's been really good for them for what his value is to the team. Josh Allen, they have Devin Lloyd, Tyson Campbell. Like they have good pieces, but it's just all of them, fulfilling their potential and coming together.
yeah.
That's really what's holding them back so far, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like again, I look at this team; it's the same defense as last year on paper, right? I
Yep.
think Trayvon Walker could get better. Devin Lloyd could get better. Josh Allen's already really good, but like, oh
Yep.
yeah, Andre Cisco could get better. Tyson
Yep.
Campbell could get better. Four young pieces could get better. Everything else I expect to be the same or worse, right? Because you also have to factor that some of the older players could get worse, right?
Yep.
The scheme is the same defensive coordinator, and then also like the thing you have to consider is like last year they were what I think was a very inconsistent defense. So it's like, of course, they had a great second half against the Chargers, but they got clapped in the first half,
They got
right?
destroyed.
And it's like, yeah, they had some good possessions against Mahomes and the Chiefs, but then Chad Henne scored a touchdown on them, right? So it's like up and down defense. They'll probably be an up and down defense. And again, like they just didn't do enough to become a different football team. I still look at them the same. I just think
Same.
that people are looking at them different because they severely underrated them last year. So
Yeah,
that's where
yeah,
I'm at
that
with the
makes
Jags. Obviously, in this division, I have them winning. So we can get to the division predictions. I'll put my like 1, 2, 3, 4 in the chat, but I got Jaguars one for sure. And then like not that this is a good thing, but I'm putting Houston second just because like I expect things to fall apart with
Yep.
Tennessee. So I'm putting the Texans 2, but not even close to a playoff spot. I just think that this is just the division being bad. I'm putting the Titans 3. And then I'm putting the Colts at 4. That's my 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we'll get the 1, 2, 3, 4 from Murtaza. Anybody watching right now, if you're one of the people here that is a football fan, feel free to get your prediction in the chat as well. And if you're not and you're just joining us for the ride and enjoying the conversation, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Again, if you're here from Sarcasm City, this is an extension of what Sarcasm City does. So,
Yep,
support the ecosystem. We're all going to benefit from it. But go ahead, Murtaza.
100%. No, bro, same exact thing. Same exact.
Like it.
I definitely Colts will by far and away be the worst team in that division. I think. The Titans and Texans are like you can swap them around. Like I'm not mad at either, but
I agree.
I'm more leaning towards the Texans being better than the Titans because, yeah, man, I think their team is just in such a weird limbo that like no one in the building I think knows what's really going on. So yeah, it'll fall apart over there. So
Yeah. And then also you have to factor that like the Texans don't have their first round pick. So at no point will they ever be like, yo, let's shut it
yeah,
down.
let's
Like end
tank.
of the
Yeah,
season, last 5 weeks, they'll still be trying to win football games. The Titans might find themselves in a circumstance where it's like, fuck it, whatever. Let's just lose games. Let's play
that's
Malik Willis. Like, like that won't happen for the Texans. They'll be on that Lovey Smith shit again next year of like, let's win down to the last
my
game.
dog. My dog, Lovey.
Chicago legend Lovey Smith. So, yes,
There's love.
people, this was the AFC South divisional preview. I held down the AFC East and North on my own. So the exact same thing I did, going with putting the depth chart on the screen, going through the offense and the defense of each team, throwing a prediction in the chat at the end. I did the exact same thing. So make sure to check that out if you enjoyed this. I will be continuing to do this every night until Thursday. I want to wrap up on Wednesday night with the NFC South, NFC West. So that's what I'll be doing, people. Every night I'll be on this channel going live for roughly an hour to do this exact same content for each and every division. There might be people that join me. They might be busy. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, make sure to tap in, people. A lot more of the same stuff. A lot of content coming during the season. If you like NCAA content, if you like week previews, week recaps, watch longs during the weeks, draft content, free agency content. Is like going to be a lot of stuff on this channel going forward. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you tap in. And yeah, I'll catch you guys around. I don't know if Murtaza has anything to wrap up with, but I'm ready to get out of here, people.
Yeah, for sure. Just hey, man, echoing the same things. Just make sure you guys keep supporting, like, and subscribe. Yep, that's it for me.
We're out of here, people.